Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We do several webinars a month. First Wednesday of the month is generally done by our sales team that gives people just an overview of ClubExpress, or maybe drill down into a way a particular type of organization uses ClubExpress. And this might be for a bicycle club or yacht club or something like that. But generally, I tend to do webinars on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. And these are usually deep dives into particular functions. And a lot of the functions have been out, part of ClubExpress for a long time. Today's a little different because this is an optional additional cost feature. And this was just introduced a little more than a week ago. And I want to take a look at this. I do a general introduction like this. Then I go into a demonstration, and then we will take questions and answers at the end. So we'll take care of a little bit of housekeeping. All the phones and microphones are muted. So if you have questions, enter them into the chat window. And Devin will be watching the chat window. He's from our customer service department, and ask questions along the way. We will also revisit the questions at the end, particularly for those people that are viewing this as a recording. And the way you can get to the recording is if you go to clubexpress.com and click on the Cool Stuff link. At the bottom left, there's a tab for webinars, and at the bottom of the webinars page, there's a section for recorded webinars. There's also video tutorials, and the video tutorials are marked on the video tutorials tab, just above the webinars tab, and they're also available on your control panel. If you go to the support tab, all of the video tutorials are there. Now, for example, there are video tutorials about the ad hoc reporting module. We did 2 tutorials there. One thing that we'd like you to do if you're using ClubExpress, and particularly if you like using ClubExpress and it's being useful for your organization, is go to clubexpress.com/reviews and enter a review onto one or more of these review sites so other people who are evaluating association management solutions can have the benefit of your experience. So this slide is all about, well, what are ad hoc reports and how do they differ from standard ClubExpress reports? Well, first I want to preface that this webinar is an overview. Just to do some level setting, I'm going to go through a lot of stuff today. And it is not important necessarily that you know how to do things when I'm done. What is important is that you know that these things are doable. So when you look at a report, say, oh, this is the kind of thing I might like to do. We don't have enough time to go into the details about how to do every one of these things, but I'll try to point out the things that I think are cool. That said, with ad hoc reporting, I'm like a kid in a candy store. There's lots of things that I just want to reach up and put in my bag, and lots of shiny, tasty things, particularly for people that are data-centric like me. But this is really all about giving you an overview of the kinds of things that you might be able to do for your organization that maybe you can't do now. So as you probably all know, the basic ClubExpress platform has something like 400 built-in reports. And this makes it really easy to share information about your membership and financial information and transactions, all that stuff, with other members of your community or your executive board and such. And there's some basic filtering on these reports, and you can view these things in HTML or PDF format. And there's also a data export facility. So you can export your data, and then you could go into something like Excel or some other reporting program and create your own reports with the data that's there. However, our administrators were saying that, listen, we really want more control over the reporting and, most importantly, data analysis. And so what this ad hoc reporting module lets you do is you can design and save a wide range of reports. And one of the things that I think is a little underrated, use the interactive data discovery tools. So you could actually just answer questions as they come up. So if someone says to me, I need to know all of the inactive members who expired on a particular date, or I need to know all of the people that are from a particular state that donated more than a particular amount of money, or you can just get very, very specific about the data that you want to include in a report. So these reports could be basic, simple tabular layouts, or they can be very, very detailed reports with sorts and groupings and filters and visualizations like charts. They can shade alternate rows. You can include images, and you can do a lot of conditional formatting. Maybe you want all the people that owe more than a certain amount of money to be highlighted in red. And we can even include drill downs from summary data. You could have a report that has a little link on it that says show details. And you click on the details and a little pop-up window shows up just for the details. There is a feature for scheduling that will let reports run automatically. Maybe you have a set of reports that you want to run at the beginning of the week or once a month or every Wednesday at midnight or something like that. That can be done also. You might have an example is a daily list of outstanding charges or monthly reports of all the members that have birthdays in this month. And one of the really cool things is you can create dashboards that show a comprehensive look at related data. And we'll show a little bit about dashboards too. My demonstration agenda is very terse. We'll talk about how to get started. We'll talk about the user interface, two particular types of reports, ExpressView and advanced reports, and dashboard, not necessarily in this order. So let me share my desktop with you. As I mentioned, there are recent videos, and you'll see that we have two here in the video tutorial section here on ad hoc reporting, getting started, and ExpressViews, and another one called creating an advanced report. So those are our first two ClubExpress very specific videos, and we'll talk about some other resources in a moment. The other thing is, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see that there is Demo Club. When you click on Demo Club, we have this Demo Club, which is our balloon club, the Northwest Balloon Club, and it has ad hoc reporting enabled in it because this is not the kind of thing that we have a trial mode for. And so you can log in here. There's coordinator here, but probably the one that you'll want to look at is log in as a full administrator, and then you can try creating some reports. So once you're into your club, if you haven't already signed up for the ad hoc reports, you go to the control panel, and on the club tab, and yours might say organization or theater, whatever your type of organization is called, there is a link here for ad hoc reporting. So if you either click on this link or you go into edit mode, you'll come up to what is in effect the subscription agreement. So when you click on this, you come to this that says, okay, here's how I would get into ad hoc reporting by go to ad hoc report, or you could change the option. If you haven't already subscribed, you get one that looks like this, where it says, this is available as an annual subscription. The basic fee is $200 a year or $300 if you want to include the scheduling. So this is what that screen would look like if you had not already subscribed. But once you have subscribed, it changes, so that you could actually change your subscription. And you get this button here that says go to ad hoc reports. When you click on that button, you come to a screen that looks like this. What we're looking at is the ad hoc reporting environment, or the ad hoc reporting desktop. And what we have are a series of tabs along the left side. We will have tabs across the top as we open windows into different reports and different functionality. Over here, we have report folders. So there are things called shared reports, and these are your reports. Shared reports are reports that ClubExpress is publishing that any of our clubs that are using ad hoc reporting can use. And what you could do is you could say, oh, we have a donations report. You could either run the report. You'll see here it's locked because it's a shared report. But you could just simply duplicate the report, put it into one of your own folders. So these are things that we're starting to add now. We're just starting to add them into production. What you're looking at right now is one of our testing environments. So don't expect to see these reports here. And then you'll be able to make your own folders. So we created, just for this test club, a folder for event reports, a folder for executive dashboards, financial reports, membership reports, things like that. And you can actually drag things from one folder into another just by drag and drop. So this is the report browser. Strangely enough, you hover your mouse over it, it says Browse Reports. we are looking at the home page. So on the right side of the home page, we've got some resources for you. There's a couple of links to the first two video tutorials, getting started in creating ExpressView and creating an advanced report. There's links to download the manual. And the ad hoc reporting functionality is provided by a company called Exago. And so we subscribe to it, and you subscribe to our implementation of it. And Exago has their own user guide and a series of about a dozen videos about ExpressViews or about formatting or doing conditional formatting or building dashboards. So in addition to the two that we've already created, these are absolutely worth watching. Now, at any point, if you at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that there is a link for getting help. So if you click help, it will bring up, in this case, help about the home. And so this is just general information about the ad hoc reporting mechanism. If you were looking at any particular report, say if I was looking at an ExpressView here, and I click, I'm going to skip the tutorials. You'll see me click this a lot. And now if I click on Get Help, we get help for ExpressViews. And you'll see each time you open up a window, they open up as another tab. So you do have context-sensitive help, and you can also get to any help that you need. So I use this quite a bit because, again, this is new to sort of everybody. And there's one other thing to show you, and that is up here, there's a user preference. So that you as a user, can you decide to enable or disable the tutorials? And you could say, every time I come into the ad hoc report designer, I want these particular tabs to be open. So I can come over here to events and I can say, oh, okay, when I come in, I want the single event to be up. You could decide what you want to preload there. And one thing that I'll try to get into, there is a thing called a user report. And that is when you're running a report, you can make changes to the report, maybe conditional formatting, bolding something or changing the font or making a special filter. And you can say, I want to save a copy as my version of the report. And that way, the next time you click on the report in the list, it doesn't make a separate named version, but the next time you click on that report in the list, it will show you your version of the report. And so you can then continue to use that, or you could delete it and go back to, in effect, the previously saved, the general version of that report. There are a couple of other things. One is that these tabs are enabled when they need to be enabled. Like right now, it says open the report designer to begin using data. Can't do that because we don't have a report designer open. This is the scheduler, and this is where you create a new report. And so there are 5 types of reports. There's ExpressView. I mean, it's a really interesting tool because to me, it's a data exploration tool. It lets you do some things very, very quickly and very efficiently, and it's very, very interactive. Advanced reports is more of a conventional report designer with banded sections. Dashboards let you aggregate information, and crosstabs let you create pivot tables, and chained reports let you group a bunch of reports together and output them as a particular single report. So what I'm going to do at the moment is I'm going to show you a dashboard, because the dashboard shows a couple of things that are of interest. I can either run the report by clicking the Run button, or I could double-click it to go into design mode, or I could click over here for a menu that lets me go into design mode, run it, et cetera, and rename, duplicate it, and such. I'm just going to run it for the moment. And so this dashboard has 3 reports on it. Now, one of the things you'll find is that you can make more room for things either by resizing these panels, or just click on the panel's icon, and it'll just take the panel away until you open the panel again. So we're going to revisit each of these reports to kind of see what they do. But you'll notice here that this is a live report. I can scroll up and down. I can come over here and I can expand the tile and show the report full screen. And then I can come back here to collapse the tile. So sometimes your reports are constrained by your physical display, and this is one way of getting around it. Some of the reports have visualizations in it. This is about members and says, well, how many members do we have? What's the percentage of the members per type? So we've got 42% individual and 51% family and 2% are lifetime. And what I can do is I can just click on this and it will show me just those people that are lifetime members. So I can go between a table and a chart. And so again, I can do this for any one of these and go back and forth between the two. Very, very nice drill down capabilities. Similarly, we have this report down here, which is a cross tab that is saying, okay, we've had transactions and we have different types of transactions, whether it be renewing a membership or an event registration or a donation or whatever. And so this is showing for each month in a particular date range what the status is. Were they paid in full? Were they not paid? Were there no charge? Was it something that was canceled? And such. And we have totals on the right side and on the bottom. So these are just a way of maybe presenting something to your organization's executive board to be able to put together a dashboard that they can run and at a glance get a good overview of what they're doing. So let's take a look at a couple of reports. I'm going to go to membership, and we've got one here that says new members in the last 30 days. So I'm going to again skip the tutorial, and I am right now in the designer. So this designer, we've brought in a couple of fields here, and if I click on live data, this will show all of the people that have joined in the last 30 days and by date. And we even have a little chart here. And so again, I can click on the chart to say, well, who joined on that date, which might be useful if you have people that joined at a particular event. You want to say, well, how many people joined while they were at the event? And then you can clear your selected points here. But if I just want two different dates, you can put two at the same time. Clicking them on and off will clear or enable them. Now, the reason I wanted to show you this is, number one, this is an easy way to toggle between live data and report design. And if I come over here to filters, you'll see that in this case, the way this works is when I click on this to say the member's join date is greater than, and so if we say greater than or equal to, so we want it to be a particular date, so then you can come over here and pull down these calendar functions. These are the calendar themselves, but if you click on the f of x, the function of x, we can say, oh, okay, we want it to be, we want it to be today minus 30 days. And that puts a date in here. Although the date shows, when you run the report, it will evaluate at runtime today minus 30 days. So these are the kinds of things that you might want to look at. Now, if we look at the data here, I want to see, maybe I'll do something a little different here. If I wanted to sort by last name, I would come over here to live data, and I could either sort by last name by clicking on this little icon here that's called the radial menu. So I can click on last name, and I can decide the sort. So I decide if we're going to sort by the column, and you can sort ascending and descending, and you can actually look at the sorts here. You can also group. So I don't know if we have anybody here that's grouped from two different states. Yeah, let's do this here. If I go back here, and I can come over to state and say, I want to group by state. So now when we look at the data, you'll see that on 7/12, we've got these that are grouped by Illinois and these that are grouped by Ohio. So again, you can change this stuff as you see fit. And I'm going to cancel that for a moment. Oh, there is one thing that I did want to show here. So if I am running this report, If I want to highlight everybody who's in Illinois, I can right-click on the data. Now, I'm just running the report. I'm not in design mode. You see up here, it says live data. I can say, oh, apply this formatting to all equal values, equal to the cell I was in, and I want to change their foreground color to red. And so now you'll see that we have red formatting for all of these. And you could do something like this for conditional formatting for people that owe money or that are your big donors. Anything that you want to conditionally format, you could do this. Let me close this for a moment. Let's go to a report called Inactive Members. And this is one that I use in the tutorial. And so this one here is an advanced report. And the advanced report is a banded environment. You don't just kind of drag things around and just go to live data. You drag things around and then actually run the report. And if we look at this, we'll see that we've got it where the green bands here are the member type, whether it be 2-year or family or individual. And the member status is within that. So here we've got expired, frozen, pending. Down lower, we've got dropped and pending. And then we've got the member level, which is whether are they a primary member, are they a secondary member, are they a tertiary member. In this one here, this one is primary only, because maybe you want to contact the people that are no longer active, but you don't want to contact the secondary members or the tertiary members. So this is a further limitation. So if I go to edit this one here, we can take a look at a few things. You'll see that there's a section here, things that are on the page header are going to appear once per page. Things that are on the group header, like this is the member type header, that's going to appear every time the member type changes. And then we have the member status and details and such. But if we come up here to the filters, you can see that we've got a member status. And for member status, we're saying we only want to include statuses that are not equal to active. I could have made it is one of to say, oh, I want one of these. But I won't. I'm just going to say I want this to just be not equal to active. That's all of our inactive members. And with the next filter, and I want their member level to be equal to primary. And if you look down here, it says member status equals active and member level is equal to primary. So that's just a good example of how you can filter things down to say, oh, I got all my inactive members, but now I really only need the primaries. And you can keep on adding to the filters and to the sorts and to the data categories until you get what you want. So similarly, if we go to the non-members professional interests, I think this one is here. So here's an example of a report that shows interests. And the data here, if we go into the design mode, it will say that the interest categories is one of these two interest categories, because interest can be grouped into categories. So there are several categories, and one was called professional groups. So we said, well, let's just not use that. Something that was kind of cool about this is there's another report that one of our folks designed that's called non-professional interest and detail. So the ones with the little lightning bolt next to it, these are ExpressView reports. The ones with the circles next to it are advanced reports. And if we run that, there's kind of a nice thing that he's done here, and that is he's connecting the group types with a colored line. So you see hobbies is going to go from here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, all the way to the next page. So you see all this yellow stuff is all the hobbies. And then the next thing is for the traveling groups. There are also things that were done here that are not terribly obvious. And that is that the group header here is not only going to show up at the beginning of the group, but it's also going to show up at the top of the next page, as are the subgroups. And if we look at these, you'll see, if I go into design mode on this one, you will see that we have the graph in the report header. And that's what these, the repeating columns are designated by this double line here. In fact, I can come back. They're indicated by these double lines here. So when you click on here, that's what repeat row means. Means repeat the row heading at the top of every page. And these yellow lines here are just borders. So all we've done here is say, okay, for this cell here, if we click on Format Cells or right-click on it and choose Format Cells, there's tabs for how you format numbers, how you format borders, and all it's saying is we want this color border on the left side to make it 4 pixels wide. If I wanted to change the color, I would just pick a different color. So that's all this was say, oh, let's take all of these cells, and you can actually hold down the control key and click a few cells at a time, click on Format Cells, and it will apply your formatting to all of those cells. So again, this is just user interface stuff, but this adds to the readability of your reports. And the key is that reports are really designed to change data into information. You want whoever's going to read the report to understand the report. So I'm just going to close a bunch of things here. And so let's go down to a financial report. And the one I wanted was donations all. And if I run this one, we see all the donations. And there are 3 different funds: this memorial fund, the general donation fund, and the scholarship. And some people have been wondering about this button up here that says filters. The donation filtered report, when I run that, it will let me select a particular fund. So say I select the general donation fund. Now, I could have simply said not equal to blank. If I say it's not equal to blank, that means use all funds. But if I say equal to general donation fund and I run it, we get just the general donation fund. What if we wanted to have a particular fund, but let's say you have 500 funds? Well, that mechanism isn't really designed for that. Similarly, what if you wanted to go to an event and you wanted to design a report based on a particular event? And that's what these are about. When you click on this, it lets you decide on filtering for an event, a fund, a survey, or a subgroup. And the reason why it's particularly useful for events is that how would you go pick an event if it listed all of the events for you that was just called member meeting? And you have your monthly member meeting is always called member meeting. So if we go to all categories and I look at all the events, well, this would be the kind of list that it would present to you. But what we've done here is we're saying, okay, only show me lists for the monthly meetings, and only those within a particular date range. Now, if I click on Reload List, I can go and pick a particular meeting. So maybe the meeting is the one on 9/14. And it's saying that behind the scenes, there's an ID on that's that meeting ID. And then whenever I design a report that wants a particular event, if I come up here and I say I want to do an ExpressView, and I want to go into events, and so we go into events here, and we have the event's title I can drag in, and the start date, and the finish date, and its event type. Let's bring that in the front. And if I just run this report, if I go to live data, we will see each of the event types. This is with no restrictions whatsoever. But if I go to filter and I say, I want to use a filter, and that filter here is this event ID for a filter. If I drag that to the filter, what it will do is come over here and say, I want it to be current event ID. So now when I run the report, it will go to that particular meeting on September 14th. If I come up here and choose a different event, it doesn't matter. Let me go to this other monthly meetings. If I come over here and go to this committee meeting, and now if I rerun the report, now we've got the committee meeting on that date. So this is a way of letting you narrow down the selection and go to a particular event. Again, it's not all that useful on funds unless you have a lot of funds, but it is very, very useful on events. This lets you search for them by particular type, etc. It's very, very useful. The other thing I just wanted to show, this is the kind of thing that you can play with. We have the start date and time here, but there's no time here. So if we go back into this and I come over here and I say, let's go into the data format. And this is going to be a date. And what format do I want? Oh, I want a format that includes the hour, minute, and AM and PM, like that. And then when I run it, we can say, okay, this is the format, and you can see the AM and PM. We do the same thing for the finish date. So I look at it as report design is an iterative process. You drag a couple of fields onto the workspace, you make the decisions that you think you're going to need as far as what data needs to be there, and the sortings and the groupings and things like that. And then you say, let me run the report. And now I can figure out what I don't like about it, you see. And then you make the changes. Now, whether they be in something like the ExpressView report, where you have control over formatting, do something like take a theme and say, oh, I want a crimson theme. It'll show up like that. Or if we were to take something like, let's try the transactions crosstab. And all this is a report with a crosstab visualization in the footer. And when you double click on the footer, you can then decide what theme do you want. Do you want it to be purple? And it'll change to purple. Or you can go to basic, or you can go to sunrise. You can make all these changes, and then when you apply them, all this formatting gets applied to your crosstab. And you'll notice, in this case, we're saying we want the row header to be the transaction type, and within that, the transaction, the month of the transaction date. The point is, you look at these things and you make the changes that you need to make. Again, I'm not going to really take the time, unless somebody wants something very specific to look at, to go into the how you build each one of these. But really what you do is you decide what kind of a report you want. If it's an ExpressView, it puts you into a wizard. And it's saying, okay, it shows you the fields. What kind of a report is this? If this is membership, and we want to go to interest, we're going to do something as simple as the interest category, the interest name, and let's go into the interest members and say, let's drag in their full name and their email and their phone number. And you look at it and say, that looks pretty good. Let me just look at it and say, yeah, that's pretty good. Well, maybe I need to make the email column wider. And then really, I want to group this by category. And then within category, maybe by interest. And once you've made a choice in the rotary menu, now you'll say this inserts into a category, and this would now remove it to ungroup. So now we look at it and we say, oh, okay, now we've got hobbies, and then we've got automatic coloring of these things here. to have the data. Now, one of the things you can do if you want is say, this looks pretty good, but I really need to put in headings and I need to put in my company logo and all of that stuff. Well, you can come over here and say, create an advanced report. And so we're going to call this one under members, and we're going to call this interests from ExpressView, just because I need a name. And we create advanced report. And then if we come up here and we look under membership, there should be one called interest from ExpressView, which I can then just run the report, or I can go into edit. So you may find that it's getting you halfway there. Oh, this is it. So it's doing all this stuff for you, including putting in counts and do all those things that the ExpressView was doing for you automatically. And this is pretty nice. In fact, it even, you'll see, put in the alternating background colors on the row. So this is a really quick way of getting an advanced report. Maybe start with an ExpressView report, and you'll see that it's already put in group headers for the interest category and the interest name and such. So play with it, come over here, let it do most of the work for you. In advanced reports, when you create an advanced report, you go through a wizard that says, okay, what do you want to call this one? So we'll call this a webinar demo. And where's it going to go? We'll say this is going to go into membership. Okay, what are the data categories? So similar to what you would do with the other report, you say, okay, I really want interests and I want interest members. These are the ones that we want. And then we go into the sorts, and you would drag in what fields you want from which of those two data sources. So we say, okay, we want to sort by category name, or maybe we want to sort by category display sequence or interest display sequence. And then within that, we want it by alphabetically by interest name. You decide which filters you want. And we could say something like category name. And then you go to the pick list here and we say, okay, is one of, and then we say we just want these two. And then you can go to layout. And this is where you would just drag in the fields that you want. We don't want the category description. We want category name and the interest name. And you'll see that they sort of building a preview here. And if you want to change them around, you move them up or down a row and it'll change it down here. And so you just put in whatever fields you need. And so let's do last name, first name, and email. And then when you click finish, it will have constructed the basic report for you. Now, you could have also asked for totals and things like that, but this just gives you an idea of the different ways you can create these reports. So there are a ton of little shortcuts, like holding down the control key and dragging a field to another place, and that will duplicate the field. And if it was a total for a particular row, if you put it into a group, it'll actually duplicate the field and do the total for that row. You can take different cells. If I insert a row here, I've got 4 cells here, but I could highlight 2 or 3 cells and come up here and combine the cells by merging them into one cell. And then if I have this cell, I want to unmerge them, I can unmerge them like this webinar demo. If we unmerge this, we see that there were 4 cells, but the report designer merged them together as a title. And this is where we could add images. There are lots of functions. I could come over here, for example, and insert a function. And we've got all sorts of functions, aggregates for counts and max and minimize, logical functions. There are organization information. So if you have uploaded a logo, you could pull in the logo, and choose OK. Now logo goes in here. And now when I run the report, you will see my little logo here. And you use that for certain things like a member name is the person who ran the report, and current date and all of that. It just goes on and on and on. And we'll be doing webinars that are dedicated to each one of these report styles. We'll do a drill down because it's easy to spend an hour just on ExpressViews or an hour just on the advanced reports. So what I want to do is, while I'm closing up a few of these things here, you can see that we have a lot of windows open. Devin, do we have any questions? I know I've been talking a lot, but here's a good.
Shockingly quiet. I think a lot of people were enwrapped in your video, so we might get some questions flooding in now.
All right, so let me do this here. So why don't you ask some questions, and Devin will repeat the questions, and we can take a look at this together, because I want to use the last 10 minutes or so just to sort of explore this together.
I've got a question from someone saying I am not able to see the ability to add it on their site. It should be under the organization or club tab in your website.
Yeah, if you go to your control panel, the tab here will either say club or organization or theater. It will be whatever under club options you have called the keyword for your organization. So,
and it says, Dave said he's very interested in the dashboards. So we'll probably have a webinar on just dashboards, yes?
Yeah, well, with dashboards, just so you can see, the way you create a dashboard is you click on the plus sign here, you create a dashboard, and then you just start dragging and dropping tiles. And you can resize tiles, and then you decide what's in a tile. So if I say, and this tile is going to be an existing report, well, which report's going to be here? So if I go, say, to the financial one here, and we go to the transaction crosstab, we just drop this in here, and now this report is in here. And of course, I can move this stuff out of the way. And then you can just drag this stuff around and say, oh, I really want that on the bottom of the report. And I'm going to make it a little narrower. And then you might say, I just want to make a new tile here. And there's just going to be some text. And this is going to say transaction crosstab. And depending on, I think it's just going to resize everything. And so you could just take this and put it over here. And then you can just go and make a new tile and put whatever you want into it. An image that would be anywhere on your computer, or it could be a filter that you would then apply to all the things that are on your dashboard here. You could actually say, what do you want to see? And you could actually do that when you run the dashboard.
So yeah, our next, taking them first come, first serve. Melissa had a really good question. It's something I've actually been working on, the report we were working on yesterday. She asked how to make a report showing information about master accounts and financial accounts. I can take that one, actually.
Why don't you just walk me through it?
Yeah, if you go in ExpressView or Advanced Report, either one, that data is actually under money. And then it's the remit transaction details. Yeah, this is where all the information for your financial accounts will be. And so it'll give you...
Just give me some quick instructions to show how quickly you could put this thing together. Tell me what to drag in.
Yeah, so for the report I made, I dragged just account, amount, and then transaction date. And that'll just show you what payments were made to what account on what day. And then you can sort those by amount, or you can sort them by date, or you can sort them by accounts. It looks like it defaulted to sorting by account.
Yeah, and we can check the sorts by coming here. It's sorted by account, amount, and transaction date. Of course, we could just take this and drag it up, and now it'll change it by transaction date. And again, on any of these things, you could just say, I want to group by transaction date, or I want to group by account. And, or if you have people making donations in fixed amounts, you could group by amount. Show me the people that made the $100 donations and the $200 donations and all of that. And then you likely could add a chart to it. So again, and then you can decide whether or not you just want to show the chart, or if you want to show the chart above the data or below the data and all of that. So we'll kill this one. Next question.
Yeah, Jim asked, how do I add totals for each group and also for the whole report?
Okay, in a report, let's see if I can find one. If we look at financial, let's do donate.
While you find that, Margaret asked if there will be shared reports for villages. Yes, we are working on shared reports for villages. Those should be coming up soon.
All right, so on this one here, this is called the donations with graphs. One of the things is that when this report was designed, there's a little checkbox in the report filters that says, show this pop-up at runtime. So this is asking the person that's running the report, which donation fund do you want to use? So I'm going to say not equal to and leave it blank. Or, of course, I could say not equal to a particular fund. And so here's an example of getting fund totals per group. And I think at the bottom of the page, at the bottom of the report, we also have report totals. So let's just take a look at this one in particular in an advanced report. So you'll see that we've got these sections here. Page headers happen once at the top of the page, anything that's in this section here. Report header happens once at the top of the report. Then we've got header for donation fund. I'll just go a little larger. Donation fund and a footer for donation fund. And then there's a report footer. So this is going to happen at the end of the report. So when you insert over here, you say add a section. If you wanted to do another group header or group footer, you would decide here. But here we're saying we already have this one, the group footer for the donation. Well, in the detail row, so if I take this out here, oops, yeah, I'm going to delete it. It didn't like that because it's being used by the chart. But if this one here is, if I double click on it, it shows that this is the donation amount. If I hold down the control key and I drag it down, I've got to kill the chart. Let's hope that it will still run. Yeah. You'll see that the fund total didn't actually work correctly. And what I need to do is I need to come over here and then click on, I need to come over here and click on the sum. So what it'll do is it'll do the sum of all of that. So now we should get $350 in the first panel. This is the fly-in without a net, live performance. So that's the way these things work. But the idea of being able to copy things down, depending on what you're doing, it will actually start doing aggregations if there are things like counts and such.
Dave Ellman was asking for more detail on things like the attendance funds and interest filters, I believe, for events.
Up here, if you want to go to a particular event, if that's what you're talking about, we'll call these the ClubExpress filters. I'm not quite sure what we want to call these. They're special filters because this is above and beyond what's built into the system because we don't want to present lists of 1,000 events. You want to be able to say, okay, just show me the events through a particular range. And so this is where you would select it, and then you would use that function for the event ID, I think it's an event filter ID, and you would use that in the report filtering. I'm not sure if I answered the question or if he was just looking.
I'll reconnect with Dave and try to get a more detailed question too. And then Dave also asked if he should import a logo. No, that's it pulls the logo from your site automatically.
Yeah, if
the logo that you've updated.
Upload club logo, and so you can go and pick the logo. Now, of course, you can in a report just add an image when you're designing a report, and any one of these you could go in any cell and click over here and put in any image. But if you want your club logo or if you want your club name, some of the functions are pretty useful. We've got all sorts of functions, and there are, say, string functions. I wanted to do a report because in these demo reports, we have a lot of fake email addresses. And so I wanted to just have a list of all those email addresses that contain the word clubexpress.com. And so you could do that. And whenever you do something like this and you just drag contains down here, then it shows, if you click on any one of these, it shows you what the syntax is. And then you would come over here and say, I want to only use those where the user transaction item status has a particular value. And you would pick up the syntax for the formula editor here. But the thing I wanted to show you in particular were organizational info. You've got, what is your current currency symbol? What's your logo? What's the current member name? And what's the organization name? So those are things that you can just put into your reports and they'll always be there. And if you change it on your control panel, change your organization name, you change your logo, you don't have to go and revisit all these reports. You can it'll just use the current version of the logo. And that makes things much, much simpler.
We did get a question from Eric. He asked, can reports be created and used by different subgroup admins that show data only for their subgroup? That's a yes and no kind of answer. We can create reports that are filtered by subgroups, but if an admin of a subgroup has access to ad hoc reports, he has the access to the full ad hoc reports. There's not a subgroup only ad hoc report module yet.
Yeah, but it is something that we're looking at along the same lines as permissions for some other modules. And we're kind of running short on time. Now, last week when Dan did the overview of version 9 and went through about 15 minutes of ad hoc reports, there were some people that said, whoa, you're going way too fast. You're way too fast. And other people say, no, this is fine because we're not necessarily teaching you how to do things. But we are trying to give you an overview of the kinds of things that you could do and the kinds of things that you could present to members of your executive board or to your membership chair people. Just how do you take the information that's been gathered by your organization and turn it into actionable items? So if you look at the donors and you say, I want to look at anybody who is greater than the current value, I want them to be read. And now when I look at this report, I can say, here are all the donors that are greater than $100. And it's just this simple to be able to highlight that information instead of having to do a data export and then going into Excel and then trying to design a report. Here you've got this wonderful, iterative, interactive designer that can let you answer questions that maybe no one even thought to ask, but now you can ask the questions because it's viable to get the answers to those questions. So to be able to go to your fundraising committees and say, hey, here's a trend that we've noticed, or here are people that are big donors, or here are people that are due to expire at a particular time, or here are the people that are in these committees, or here's a list of the members and all of their sub-members, the secondary and tertiary members. Think about what you could do with this, and then think about whether or not this is something that would be useful to your organization. One or two last questions, then we'll wrap it up.
Jen was asking for a brief overview on how to activate it again.
Okay, so activating is easy. You go to your club tab or organization tab, and you go to ad hoc reporting. If you have not signed up for ad hoc reporting, we get that other panel that shows up because you don't get to go to ad hoc reports. It says, well, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want the basic reporting, or do you want it with scheduling? $200 a year or $300 a year. As soon as you subscribe to it, the screen changes to this screen, and then you can go to ad hoc reports. Now, if you're on the control panel and you don't want to go to that screen, you can click over here on the view icon, and that will take you directly to the ad hoc reporting workspace. So the only time you really need to go to the edit is when you want to either sign up for it, or if you want to say, oh, I really want to add the scheduler, or I no longer want to use this, I want to cancel my subscription.
I think that's most of the big ones. A lot of the other ones are about enabling and things like that, and that's something that support can always help you with if you just call.
Yeah, and if you have any questions or issues, again, you can try stuff on the demo club, but we haven't moved some of the shared reports up there yet. There's a lot of, let's just call it demo for being kind, data in there. And so the data goes back many years, but it gives you a feel for it. And keep an eye on the schedule. We are going to be doing several, let me just find it here. If I go to cool stuff, the next couple of webinars, we've just done the overview of ad hoc reporting. The next 3 weeks, we're going to do the new method of attaching files to a member's profile, some of the event calendar enhancements, and then some other enhancements. And then we're going to go back, I think, to the ad hoc reporting. It's really going to depend on how many people subscribe to it. If there's enough interest by virtue of the fact that there's a lot of subscriptions, then we're going to say, oh, no, let's give these people a leg up on it. People don't sign up for it, then we may push those webinars off a little bit. But if it looks like there's a lot of interest, we're happy to do the webinars on it. So with that, I'm going to thank everybody for coming. I appreciate your time spent with us. And so thanks again, and we hope to see you at the next webinar.